Welcome into the Sports Objective. We appreciate everyone tuning in whenever and however you're watching or listening, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And our show can also be found in audio only or podcast form pretty much everywhere podcasts are found, including Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Follow us on social media, on Twitter and TikTok at The Sports OBJ, on Instagram at The Sports Objective. Like and follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us hear from you on each of those platforms. It's hard to believe, but we're less than a month away from the start of the 2022 college baseball season. Over the last couple years, we've really enjoyed putting out our North Carolina Division I baseball preview. We've received excellent access from the Director of Media Relations and SIDs around the state, and certainly appreciate that, because without them, it would be impossible to do what we do. There are currently 17 D1 programs, and we will certainly do our best to talk to each and every one of those head coaches. Of those 17 D1 head coaches in the state of North Carolina, there is, however, just one who is in his first season at his current institution, and that is High Point's Joey Hammond. Coach Hammond, you're a native of Maryland, but have very strong ties to the state of North Carolina. You played at Charlotte for Coach Lauren Hibbs in the mid to late 90s. You were a highly successful head high school coach at Westchester Country Day School in High Point for 5 seasons. And most recently, you served in a volunteer role on Tom Walter's staff at Wake Forest, where you were a part of so much success. So just tell us a little about your background and your path to High Point.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of explain that a little bit. It's been a unique path, and yeah, looking out the window and seeing a bunch of white stuff on the ground reminds me of home a little bit, being that I'm from Maryland, as you said, and it was a pretty natural progression to come down south. I think most folks that live in that mid-Atlantic or Northeast have a natural desire to want to come to some warmer weather, although it's not that the case right now, but that's kind of how it started with me to get into North Carolina, and went to Charlotte. I played there under Lauren Hibbs for 3 years, and I met my wife there. So the rest is history as it relates to me not going back to Maryland, and stayed in North Carolina from that point. And I loved it. It became home pretty quick. I was fortunate enough to play professionally for 11 years, and every offseason I stayed in this area, and been kind of landlocked from there, and been fortunate enough to continue to do what I love to do, which is coaching. And I know I've been blessed to be able to do that at the college and Division I level at that, and be able to stay close has been a true blessing for sure.
Talk about your path into coaching. Is that something, when you went to Charlotte to play back all those years ago, is that something you knew you wanted to do then, or did you decide that you wanted to go into coaching maybe more a little bit later on in your professional career?
Yeah, actually a really natural, fairly smooth transition. I was a player, and I think as most players, your 5-year-old version of yourself dreamed to playing in the big leagues, and I was no different. And as I was playing and played the majority of the last 7 or 8 years of my career was in AA and AAA, and so knocking on the door, it was always my dream to continue to try to get to the big leagues, and that's what I wanted to have happen. But I kind of noticed towards the tail end of my career, when I was maybe having some of the best statistical years of my career and was able to stay healthy, I started to have a little shift in the passion. I started to really enjoy being able to spend time with maybe younger prospects and be able to help them, I guess, elevate their game and move on to the highest levels. And so I think I realized at a certain point that I really enjoyed that relationship and that mentorship, so to speak. And naturally, I think like a lot of professional players did in the off season, I would come home and do private lessons and small group lessons and things. And that was really simple for me to jump right into coaching as soon as I got done playing, just because it was a shift in passion for me, and it was a way to continue to stay in this game.
Now, your first coaching job, I know you spent 5 seasons, 5 very successful seasons at Westchester there in High Point. You won 3 state titles, and you sent probably, 15 or so players onto college baseball. But was that your first coaching job?
Yeah, it was, and really fortunate there too. A great situation. It's a first class, high school with some of the best high school facilities in the state for sure, and had a tremendous amount of support from the headmaster of the school to the athletic directors. I had two during my time there, and other coaches, assistant coaches, but the most important thing, as you only win games because your players are good. And to your point, we had a high number of players that were able to play, college baseball, high level college baseball, and even a professional, and Donnie Sellers, who's still playing in the Blue Jays organization. And so we're really fortunate. Really good players tend to make coaches look halfway decent.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And take us back 7 years or so now. When you had the chance to make that jump to Wake Forest, obviously Coach Walter has had so much success there, and now you obviously had a great deal to do with that success over the last several years, especially on the offensive side of things. Much has been made of the numbers that the Demon Deacons have been putting up. So if you would just talk about that opportunity to get to the Division I ranks as a volunteer, and I want to talk more about that later on, just as far as some big picture things with the volunteer coaching in Division I baseball and baseball in general. But just talk about that path to Wake Forest and your 7 years at Wake.
Yeah, great. It starts and ends with Coach Walter, as you mentioned. That was the centerpiece of the entire thing. I'm forever indebted to him. We were able to, create during recruiting process, honestly, with Donnie Sellers to that point, and others. We've been able to kind of start a relationship there, and I remember having a dinner with him. He was kind enough to have a dinner with me maybe 2 years or so before I even went to Wake Forest, where I had expressed some potential interest of getting into the next level, and asked for some of his advice in the routes, various different routes we could go, and just expressed that if an opportunity presented itself, that I'd have interest. And fast forward a couple years after that is when an opportunity presented itself at Wake, and much to my benefit, Coach Walter reached out and offered it to me, and it was a great time for me to shift and transition with where I was with my family, and such that I was able to jump into that. And to that point, you jump in as a volunteer coach, you never really know what you're getting into. I knew I had a lot to offer to the game, but not all volunteer positions are created equal for a lot of different reasons, which I'm sure we can jump into. But the main draw here was that it was really easy to work with and for a man that you respect, a man that is of high ethics, and then equally as important, a man that believed in me and gave me, the sense of pride, honestly, to be able to work with our players on a day in and day out basis. He made it a point to make sure that we all checked our egos at the door, and maybe my first year I kind of was hesitant to maybe stepping on. Coach Bill Salento, the associate head coach now, step on his toes from an offensive standpoint, and Coach Walter had took the time to pull me aside and said, "Look, you're here for a reason, and you don't need to worry about stepping on people's toes. You need to, give what you got to give, and let's help us make this thing better." And so I was so fortunate and blessed over my 7 years, completely fulfilled, totally happy, amazing situation. It was going to take a really awesome opportunity like HPU to come along for me to even consider to leave, because amazing staff, amazing place, amazing university with great opportunities, day in and day out.
You talk about that success that you and the staff had there at Wake Forest. You take a look at it, and I mean, you were on the brink, literally, in I think 2017 of Omaha. So just talk about that experience, and everything you learned from Coach Walter as well as the other assistants there, and how that prepared you, as well as that head coaching experience you brought from the high school level, how that has readied you for that HPU opportunity.
Yeah, no, great. A special team, no doubt. And again, as I mentioned before, it was, a lot to do with the players. We had a lot of, future big leaguers on that team and first round draft picks. And so that certainly helps. But that team had a special kind of magic to it, right? Because, since then we've had other first round draft picks that would come through Wake Forest, but just couldn't seem to recapture. And a lot of that is because it's the ACC and it's a challenging league. But we just couldn't capture that same magic that we had in 2017. And so some of the things that you kind of take away from that is just try to identify what buttons were pushed and what that character and makeup of the team, whether it be in certain, small details, or whether it be leadership or decisions made from a coaching staff to help guide and direct this group of young men, to your point, on the brink, a matter of a few inches of a foul ball down the left field line away from going to Omaha, and took the eventual champs to a 3-game series at their place, and again a few inches away from eliminating them and going on and potentially winning the whole thing. So you take those experiences and you try to unpack them. And as much as we know that it has a lot to do with the players and their skill set, you also, you never really try to recreate that magic because that's just one team. But you try to take some of those lessons and the character of that team and do the best that you can to build that same magic with each group that you have. And it's a difficult task, no doubt.
So you've been on the job there in High Point roughly 7 months now. So give us the Cliff Notes version of those last 7 months. Obviously, recruiting, but then also fall baseball. And, getting everything implemented in terms of your culture and schemes and so forth.
Yeah, so I don't know if there is a Cliff Notes version. I can just tell you it comes fast and furious, right? And to this point, or to that point also, Coach Walter, I owe a lot to him and Coach Salento, for that matter, to help prepare. I knew I was getting into a situation that I hadn't really experienced before. No fault of mine, but hadn't really experienced it. And the baseball part, as we all know, is typically the easiest part of this. It's the day in and day out logistics, the scheduling, and at the end of the day, how when a difficult decision comes up, and by difficult I mean kind of a right versus right decision, one where either one is right. It's just which one is better for the program and the direction. At the end of the day, it ultimately falls on you as a head coach, and I embrace that challenge. But it comes at you, and so yeah, it's been a lot. We've been super fortunate, and a lot of this, it has to do with the fact that again, tremendously blessed by being able to put together a staff that I'm so proud of and thankful for, of a mix of hunger and youth and veteran, folks that have been there, done that we've been able to hit the ground running and tackle the recruiting and really, hammer out this incoming class for next year. Went a lot faster and maybe better than I had even anticipated, to the point in which we've got a head start on our 23 class, which we've already got the core nucleus of that group committed as well. So we've been grinding, we've been working really hard, all the meanwhile really trying to, as you said, instill our values, right? We're a value-based program that we want to build this off of some key themes, and energy is one of them. One of the first challenges I've had, and anybody who's ever been around me knows that that's a prerequisite. And my challenge is for all of our players and our staff to match my energy every day, and they're not going to do it, but that's what the expectation is. And if they can come close, then we're going to be in great shape. And so, those things are fairly simple to get installed, but you never really know where it lands until you do it day in and day out, and you experience some success and failure that comes with it. To these players' point or credit, they've done everything that we as a staff have asked of them, and I'm so thankful for that. They're hungry, and they're excited, and it's a great core here that we can really build something around. And I'm not naive. It's going to take some time. There's some resetting that needs to happen, but I'm in for the challenge, and our players, more importantly, are up for it as well.
You mentioned that core. Tell us about some of those players. And I don't know exactly what you return, but just talk about some of those players that make up that core, and we'll start positionally.
Yeah, positionally, listen, there's a really good core of position players that are returning. I think I think it's not a surprise that's the strength of the team. You've got some veterans, some guys that have been here, Sam Zajac, Brady Paree. These guys have been around. Brady's coming off a hip injury, hip surgery over the break, but he's doing a great job right now. Veteran, uh, experience that these guys bring day in and day out is great and is huge for us. But we've got this core of other position guys that are really going to help us. From Blake Sutton as a catcher, Cole Sink hit 340 last year's first base. Adam Stewart in the middle of the infield holding it together, and Peyton Carr, who was a true freshman last year, led the team in homers and hit over 300. So I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. You add that core to some young incoming freshmen, and then some transfers that we were able to secure in a short period of time to become more athletic. We added, Cam Lee and Javon Fields, some outfielders that elevate our athleticism and veteran, some leadership as well. And from a position player standpoint, that is, it's been really fun to watch as we've kind of tried to cut them loose and turn them loose and allow them to be even more aggressive and try to do damage from an offensive standpoint. That's where my background is. It's what it comes from at Wake Forest. That's what we did. And I'm not trying to replicate the exact same type of a team, but you can't run away, from your stripes and who you are. And so we've been fortunate to have a roster positionally that can match some of the things that I would classify as a strength of mine.
You mentioned some of those talented incoming pieces. You talk about the things that those veterans had proven, but some of those incoming pieces, who were some guys that, could potentially, arrive onto the scene pretty quickly in this spring?
Yeah, so I mentioned Javon Fields is one. He's a transfer from Towson. He's just a tremendous leader. Athletic player who's been there and done that. He's had success at Division I level in the CAA conference, and so we're going to rely a lot on that. And he provides some stability, in the outfield and in the lineup as well. And we've got a junior college transfer, Cam Lee, who's really, really established himself. Came in, quite frankly, in full transparency, with no guarantees of even on the roster. And this guy came in and has done nothing short of been amazing to earn an opportunity to go out and play every day. To go from so it just kind of speaks to what he's been able to bring to the table, to go from a guy who wasn't really guaranteed an opportunity to make the club, for that matter, to a guy we're talking about potentially playing every day. So that just speaks to his work and what he's been able to do. We were able to add a pitcher and some help in that area. Lou Stallone is a transfer from Arkansas. We got some help there from Arkansas pitching coach Matt Hobbs, who was a former co-coach of mine at Wake Forest, and so was able to reach out and talk to Coach Hobbs a little bit about Lou and his makeup and who he is and the opportunity that we present ourselves here. And so Coach Hobbs was able to communicate to Lou the type of person that I am, and the staff and the culture that I want to build. And we've been fortunate to have Lou. Lou came in and did a phenomenal job in the fall, and we expect big things from him too. So, huge helps across the board, through all of this. And so we've been really, really fortunate to have a core group of these guys to come in that can really make an impact and add to this core of hungry young players who really want to, change things and get things turned around.
You talk about Lou coming into the program, so let's shift over and talk about the pitching staff. What are some general things you can tell us about your staff, and then let's dive into the weekend rotation. And obviously we're still very early on, so that could obviously change here in the next few weeks between now and opening day.
Yeah. So again, we bring back a lot of pitching, and a lot of it is got to continue to develop, and we've done a really good job. Coach Miller's Miles Miller's our pitching coach. He came from Towson. He's formerly at Butler, and a veteran coach who does a phenomenal job meeting each one of our pitchers with where they're at and helps guide them to where we want them to go. And all the meanwhile can do that with varying styles and degrees. We're not going to be the program that's going to adhere to one particular approach or process to be successful or great. We feel like there's a lot of different ways to do that, and we have to have some diversity amongst our skill set as a staff to be able to help reach everybody on our team. And so Miles has done a great job between him and Chris Manis, who's our volunteer coach who works with our pitchers, and Gavin Lehman, director of operations and development, who's a former pitcher for Miles at Towson. We've got a three-headed monster of some pitching coaches that have the ability to capture through various different styles and personalities, for that matter, the vast majority of our guys on our staff. And so, listen, again, they know they needed to get better. They need to improve. We need to throw more strikes. We need to stay healthy, and we need to have clearly defined roles. Those are all things that we identified when getting the job that needed to take place. There's some talent. There's no doubt. There's some frontline arms, some big arms. But to your point, this season's about to start here. It's a true meritocracy, right? If you can come here and you compete and you earn a role, then in a lot of respects, this is the most refreshing opportunity in college baseball, or at least in North Carolina, being a new staff here, that nobody came into this with hand wrapped Friday night starter or closer status, because I didn't have any reference point to really go by. And so all jobs and opportunities were earned in the fall and will continue to be earned in this early part of the spring. And that's exciting.
Coach, let's take a look lastly at your schedule. Obviously, being located where you are, and you have so many quality programs throughout this region. You play the likes of a 3-game set with the College of Charleston. Pittsburgh, an ACC program, comes to Willard Stadium. West Virginia, out of the Big 12, comes to Willard Stadium. You open things up down at Jacksonville, and then obviously you're going to play a lot of those in-state ACC programs throughout the year. So just talk about your schedule and then the Big South Conference Challenge.
Yeah, absolutely intentional. One of the first orders of business, obviously, you need to get the staff, but listen, coming from my only real experience in college baseball was at a Power 5 school in Wake Forest, and I understood what that meant, and I understood what that felt like. I also understood on the other end of that as a Power 5 coach with a Power 5 team that oftentimes you would go in and play against a mid-major program that are really good, but many times you had this you kind of went into it with a little bit of an advantage right off the bat, just because of who you are and the way you carried yourself and what your expectations were, and maybe what the mid-major programs thought of you as a Power 5 school. And so having known that and witnessed that firsthand, part of the first objective, call it naive or whatever, is we need to carry ourselves like a Power 5 program in a mid-major body, so to speak. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to put yourself out there and challenge yourself in scheduling to play against these teams, to prepare you for our challenges in the Big South Conference, and then hopefully in future, in the immediate future, to be able to prepare you for what a regional experience looks like. And so, again, absolutely intentional to load our schedule up with a ton of Power 5 schools, a ton of top 50 to a top 100 RPI schools. We wanted to get on the road. We wanted to experience what that looks like. And we wanted to be able to play some of them at home as well, because the expectation isn't just to go play them and rub elbows against them. The expectation is to go beat them. I love Coach Walter, and we respect the mess out of each other, and it's going to be awesome to get to play against those guys, but we're trying to beat them, right? And that's what the expectation is, and I'm sure they feel the same way. And so we made that very clear with our team, and we want to communicate that to recruits and everywhere, that's what our expectation here is. And if that's scary, and that's something that you're afraid of, then this isn't the right place for you. And the sooner we know that, the better, because that's what the expectation needs to be moving forward. And to that point, it's because the Big South Conference presents its challenges in and of itself. Any team on a weekend in college baseball has the ability to run some guys out there that are going to be challenging, no matter what. And there's some established programs in this league, no doubt, that have put themselves in the national spotlight for good reasons. And we want to get in that same category. We want to get in that and compete against those guys and be considered in the same light. And I don't think that's unrealistic or unreasonable. And that's absolutely the expectation.
You talk about programs within the Big South that have been on that big stage in the NCAA tournament and turned some heads. Right here within the state, you have Campbell. Everything that Coach Hare's done down there. Went to a regional championship at East Carolina, and then also last year held up very well and really put a scare into Mississippi State down in Starkville.
Yeah, yeah. Again, phenomenal what they've done from where Coach Hare started in that program to where they're at now. It's a blueprint. It's what And again, I say that it's not that they're trying to hide what they do. It takes really good hard work, right? And a lot of effort. And there's a lot of pieces that need to be put in place. And again, it's a blueprint, but we need to be HPU. We can't be, try to be Campbell or try to be Upstate or try to be Gardner Webb or try to be any of these programs that are in here. We need to be the best version of HPU we can, because we have a lot of things that we have to offer that maybe other places don't, and maybe we have some other shortcomings that other places have advantages on. And the bottom line is that our job is to elevate this program to be the best that it can be. We think we can do that. And places like Campbell are a great example of how it can be done on a national stage in the Big South Conference.
Speaking of the Big South Conference, you have the opportunity to host a Big South Conference tournament in downtown High Point at the beautiful Rockers Stadium. So just talk about what that means to your program.
Yeah, well, it means we got to be good enough to make the tournament. That's the first thing it means. But no, it's phenomenal. It's awesome. Listen, we just got a complete total field renovation where our field turf is now covered with snow, but it's all in place now. And it was under construction the entire fall. And so we, with the relationship we have with the folks at the Rockers, and the connection with the general manager there, who's got Wake Forest ties, and I've known him for a while there. We've been able to spend a lot of time there in the fall to get our scrimmages and practices at that facility. So we know firsthand that it's a great facility. It's an awesome opportunity to go play games. So we're fortunate that it's here. Again, it really only benefits us if we're good enough to be in there. And again, that's the expectation. Our players know that. We're not going to shy away from that. And we fully hope and expect to be, competing in that. And it stands to be an awesome opportunity for our program.
Well, Coach, as we record this, we're essentially a month out, just under a month out. So, tell folks how they can follow you on social media, and then also that HPU baseball program on social media.
Yeah, no. So they're I think we have all of them. It's not challenging to find on Twitter and Instagram, and obviously just on our website as well. We do have an analytics account as well that hopefully we'll be able to throw a lot now with our partnership and installation of TrackMan. Now we have a lot more data that we'd like to kind of put out there. I think it gives an inside piece, some more information for fans to get connected with this new age of analytics and data, and I think that's going to be a really neat opportunity for folks to dive into and follow that, and just follow our program in general. We're going to do a really good job. We've got a great team of folks here that dive into the social media aspect of it, and it's another area that we need to get better at as well. And we're working day in and day out. We want to be able to utilize those tools to express, how fortunate we are with things like our facility and our equipment and our players specifically. We want to highlight those things so that it can bring some attention to HPU, across the region.
Well, Coach, we certainly appreciate you carving some time out for us on this afternoon. Best of luck in the 2022 season, and we look forward to having you back on sometime down the road.
Anytime, Bob. I appreciate it. Thank you.